do not, under any circumstances, bite into them. Why? You lose your front tooth.
Oh no.
Oh, no, no.
That was a couple weeks ago, so don't bite into these. Are a dangerous weapon. So when you see one of these, you say, oh, I don't want it. So, yeah, you see like something's wrong with his mouth. Well, this is cool. This is the reason why. So, again, thank you for being here. We're here to talk about data. Just so I fill a sense, can you tell me where you're from and what your role is, where you're at? We'll begin here. Adam?
I'm a high school counselor. I
Okay.
work in Cumberland County at the Big Spring School District.
Experience?
Yep.
I'm a high school counselor as well, and I work at Franklin County, Waynesboro School District.
I'm in the same school district, but I work at a middle school.
Middle school?
I'm from Wayne County. I'm high school counselor in those homes.
It's a long ride.
Well,
And last night, 3:15 and rain and fog.
Oh,
and our member of the Fifth Estate.
Hi, yes, I'm Ashley Stallnecker. I am a writer for the LMP Lancaster Online. I'm just a fly on the wall, so don't mind. I'm learning more about. I'm an education reporter, so I'm really interested in seeing what happens in schools in this area.
Since we're a small number, I'm very grateful actually. This is going to be Q&A time for all. So if you have any questions as I go along, don't keep them to the end, whatever you do. Keep them. And this won't be the timekeeper. I forgot my watch. So,
Sure.
you know, to get that close to that end hour, just start like. Okay. Before we begin, how many have actually heard of the Center for Rural Pennsylvania? One, two, okay. Well, yeah, we're a legislative agency. That means we serve the General Assembly. And we were created on a dark and stormy night back in 1987. And at that time, rural Pennsylvania was not doing very well at all. We had high outmigration, lack of jobs anywhere in rural areas. It was a really miserable time to be in rural Pennsylvania. The legislature was like, oh, they're falling off the cliff. What to do? Well, the grand tradition of legislative, Oh, good. The grand tradition of legislature, they created a study group. That was us. And they gave us two mandates. Our first mandate is to maintain a database on rural transit conditions. That's why I'm here today to talk about the database. Our second mandate is to have a grants program where we go out and do research on rural issues. And we look at everything from rural healthcare to rural education, why we're here today, as well as community development issues, cost of living in rural areas, how it's compared to urban areas, and so on and so forth. So we do a lot of research on what's going on in Pennsylvania rural areas. And our job as such is to do the research, but not for research's sake. It has to be applied policy research. We want to have that research be used by legislators, like the ones next door, as well as county commissioners, township supervisors, school directors, and so on and so forth. So it has to be really applied research, what we do. Our grants program, though, is limited only to the Paunchy schools, the Millersville, the Lock Havens, the Slippery Rocks of the world, as well as Penn State, and its various branches and tentacles. Oh, Brad. And the regional campuses of the University of Pittsburgh, so Pitt Bradford, Pitt Johnstown, Pitt Titusville, and Pitt Greensburg are eligible for those grants. However, if you ever have a topic, you say, gee, someone should study that, please let us know, because we're always looking for new topics. In terms of staffing, you're looking at 1/5 of the staff. So there's quick math, there's only 5 of us, so we're pretty small. We also do a lot of legislative hearings. We go out and our board goes out and conducts one. Our most recent one was in October, and I'll go into a little more detail on youth mental health. But we had a 5-hour hearing up in Wellsboro, Tioga County, on broadband. 5 hours at a hearing, your butt does get sore. As well as opioids, solar, and rural health redesign, which deals with hospitals. So yeah, we do a lot of legislative hearings. So if in your communities you're hearing some issues relating to rural, and say, no one's really looking at that, you'll have my information, please contact us, because we're always interested. Working in Harrisburg, we know Harrisburg really well. What happens if you're on the other side of the Susquehanna? I don't know. So we would need to be there with some information. So think about us as a dialogue. Okay, some of our more recent reports. We just finished up a report looking at social isolation among seniors, basically as a result of the COVID, as well as housing, land use, municipal land use, like zoning and planning. And one we got a lot of media on coordinators. So the difference between how what one county does versus another county, so that was a great one. Some upcoming projects that we'll be looking at will be population projections. And I'll get into this a little bit more detail, but Pennsylvania is changing and changing very fast. A lot of people look like me, old, and that's gonna be a real big time. So we have another one looking at how to reverse population decline and then community colleges and that changes there. So if you're looking for research on a particular topic, you're taking classes, and you need to find some issues, check out our website. We have a lot of information there. Also for data, I assume you're here because you like data, right? Not many people look at the description like, boy, that looks really boring. But for data, we do have a lot of data on our website. We just go into a Tableau format, and so you can download the data in this format. We're going to be download this thing on everything from population to income to health indicators, a lot at the school district level. So as well as the county level and at the municipal level. So if you're looking for a particular piece of data, go to our website. Today is kind of an awkward day. Tomorrow, on the 8th, the Census Bureau is releasing new data. So you got the old data today. Come back tomorrow and get new data. But yeah, today they're releasing. So we're going to be updating this over the Christmas holiday and be able to have more new information. Okay, what I want to do today is look at the social determinants of health from a data perspective. A lot of us, work in your community and you think, okay, who have a problem in the school, I can't understand what's going on. And then you realize your school is not an island, you're not a little oasis, everything's perfect inside. No, you're part of a bigger community. And social determinants of health can be used to track what's going on in your community and as it relates to the school and vice versa. So we're going to be talking about that. We're going to be really focusing on the difference between rural and urban. A lot of the data we're going to talk about is kind of that higher level, but all of it's available at your district level. So if you're looking for a particular piece of information I've talked about today, we can send it to you. But keep in mind, all the data I'm going to present today, except for 3 tables or 3 slides, is all at the school district level. So there's a lot of information out there. And also, I'd like to begin having some of that dialogue and discussion on issues that you're facing in your district and some of the issues and how data might be, what are your information needs as it relates to that. Okay, let's begin. What's rural? Here's our map of rural and urban as of the last census, 2020. The gray here is urban, and the the green is rural. And you can see most of Pennsylvania is rural. But however, it accounts for 238 of the district. Urban has 226 of the 500 school districts. So there's slightly more urban districts. To get to this definition, what we do is look at population density. The population density is nothing more than the population divided by the number of square miles. Statewide, Pennsylvania has 291 persons per square mile, statewide. So we say, well, if you're below that 291 threshold, you're rural. So you got this map. And if you're above them, you're urban. So you get these school districts. And so that's how we got the rural and urban. This is one definition. There's at the federal level, there's no fewer than 7 different ways to define rural and urban. This is our definition and how we're going. So we're going to be dividing the world up into rural and urban. And you have the, well, wait a minute, what about suburban areas? We don't know. They don't exist in our definition. However, other definitions, federal definitions, do recognize suburban areas. But for us, an urban area is an urban area, and a rural area is a rural area. Okay, now just kind of get a little bit briefing on changes at the school district level that you may be observing. And here we have enrollment, the October enrollment from 2011 school year to 2031 school year projected. And you can see the urban is going down, and the rural is going down in terms of enrollment. And this, if we go back further to the 80s, you see the same trend, a slow decline in enrollment throughout the state. And as we look at these maps here, you see it's not in one area. Here's school enrollment from 2001 to 2011 school year, 2011 school year to 21 school year, and then the projections from 21 to 31. The blue represents places that had increased enrollment. The white places that either had declining enrollment or no change. And you can see there's no real pattern to that, other than most are having declining enrollment. So Pennsylvania as a whole is on the decline. On the good question, or?
Yeah, why is that?
Well, I wish I put that slide in that. It's primarily because of the birth rate.
Oh,
Yeah, the enrollment here, you see these pockets here that had a little more, that represents the baby boom's kids, the had kids. So that are baby boom's kids. There was a big population splurge back in 1989, 91. And it stopped and started going downhill again. And so 5 years later, those kids came screaming into the school districts. And then those kids are right now ready to have babies or having babies. So you can see an increase, but not as much as you did then. So basically, it's a combination of declining birth rate as well as out-migration. of
I
young
was
people.
wondering if it was like more kids being homeschooled or something.
There is that, but those numbers are relatively small, especially homeschool group. But these are school district numbers, but the homeschool crowd is definitely there, but they're relatively small. Lancaster, not here, it's there right in here, it's kind of the epicenter of homeschoolers statewide, but generally speaking, it's a relatively small number compared to the other ones. Cyber schools and stuff like that are having an impact, but overall, it's relatively small compared to the rest of the state, let's say as a whole in terms of percentages. But the key takeaway from this is no one real pattern there. Pennsylvania as a whole is showing decline in enrollment. If you go further north into New York State, identical. Further west into Ohio, identical. Whole way down through Appalachia, identical. So we're not alone. And we can understand that better by looking at the county population trends. This is one of those county maps that does look at school districts. The blue is areas that had population decline or no change. The white says reverse the other map, have population increase. And you can see here's Pennsylvania, and this whole area right in here is that southeast region. That's the area that's growing by leaps and bounds. And basically, think about Interstate 81 as it comes up here through Chambersburg, goes up through Carlisle, over through Harrisburg, through Lebanon, and then keeps on going out to 78 to the Lehigh Valley. Everything south and east of that line is growing. Everything north and west, some exceptions, is declining. So we're seeing like two Pennsylvanias right now. And you see that the whole way through the Appalachian area, the Midwest in particular, are having out-migration and declining populations. Okay. So now I'm gonna look at kind of the social determinants of health. Who've heard, I may have heard that concept before. One, not good, not good, I mean, it's going to new old territory. Basically, they were developed a couple years ago, and these are the CDC's determinants of health. And it's just a way to measure what's going on in the community as it relates. And so they have 5 of them, and some groups have 7, some groups have 11. I'm going to use the 5 determinants. The first one is access to healthcare and access and quality. And basically what the story is here is, do areas have healthcare available? Most in rural Pennsylvania, that's a big issue, finding healthcare. So that's one. The next looks at education. Education access and quality. The neighborhood, the third is neighborhood and built environment. The fourth is economic stability. And the fifth is social and community context. And so these are great concepts because you can like plug a bunch of data in that and understand the relationship between those and some of the other outcomes that are going into school. Like, why do we have low graduation rate? Why do we have high truancy? And these might help you explain what's going on in your community. But the question then becomes like, well, what data can you find, especially at the community level or at the school district level? Because a lot of these studies at the national level use metropolitan areas, which has tons and tons of data. But like Big Spring School District, there's a lot of data there? Not a lot, so it's a little struggle. So I put together some data for each of these, and we're gonna go over quickly many of these. Some of them may not relate to your district, I'll say that up front. Some might, but I want to begin kind of helping you think of some of the information that's available using these determinants. Okay, so the first one, ACT Healthcare. And here we look at the number of children under 19 without health care. In Pennsylvania, in rural areas, about 8% of the under 19 crowd don't have access to healthcare. In urban areas, 3.5. So there's like a 4.5 percentage point gap there between rural and urban areas in terms of kids having healthcare. Does anybody know why they use under 19? Because the CHIP program, you can be 19, you're 20, you can qualify. If you're 19, you still qualify for CHIP. So that the children's health insurance program. So yeah, that's why they use that. But overall, you can see there's large pockets of rural Pennsylvania, the central part, and some of the eastern part, and where kids, a significant portion of the kids do not have health care, or health and care insurance. Some other indicators include suicide rates, and you can get that at the school district level, number of heart diseases, population with disability, and school district expenditures for health. And you can see in most cases, rural is either higher, it's negative, with disability, or lower when it comes to expenditures compared to urban areas. So these are some of the indicators you may want to think about when you're looking at healthcare as it relates to your community and your school district. This is another map that is a school district particularly, and the HRSA, which is the Health Resource Service Areas, a federal agency, looks at what they call health professional shortage areas and medically underserved areas. These are areas that they identify as, yeah, it's a doctor dentist or desert. There's not many doctors here. Similarly, these areas qualify for special federal programs to recruit physicians, dentists, mental health workers, and so on. They're a little bit different how they're set up, but they basically tell the same story that large parts of Pennsylvania are healthcare deserts in terms of providers being there. These areas do have hospitals, but there's 7 counties in Pennsylvania that have no hospitals. So there's a lot of underserved areas in our Commonwealth without hospitals and healthcare providers. So this kind of gives you a clue. It's easy to nail this down to the areas by the school district level if you're interested. I can do that for you. Another one is just this is the other slide. It doesn't focus on the school district, but these are a number of providers. And you can see, oh shoot, this is the wrong one. Darn it. Well, trust me, this is rural and urban. It's Indiana County. I knew I changed it. No. Anyways, these are the areas, the rural areas in general have fewer physicians, fewer dentists, as I know, pharmacists, physical therapists, and psychologists. In rural areas, there's fewer and fewer of them throughout the state, and compared to urban areas. Now, a trivia question later on about that. Okay, the next one is domain education and access and quality. And there's a couple ways of looking at this one. Here I'm going to look at our high school graduation rates, and I compare urban to rural. This is rural, this is urban. You can see that the rural areas are pretty consistently higher than urban areas. Does anybody know why? I don't know.
Say that again?
Rural areas have consistently higher graduation rates than urban areas.
I would argue it's probably easier in smaller communities where that sense of community would incentivize teachers knowing the kids to say, we're going to help you move along, versus urban environments where students are more transient and maybe more behaviorally annoying and chaotic and dangerous and just a lot, to where people maybe don't develop that same sense of, we're going to help move you along. That'd be my guess.
Any other thoughts?
I would agree with that too, and I would just say, like we were talking about Burger King, longevity, like at my school, I worked in my school for 32 years. So I've had parents, like I've had kids and I've got the parents, and you know the families.
Yeah.
So that they, I think, are, when they hit rough spots, are a little bit more encouraged to reach out to ask for help, like, hey, my kid wants to play. They're also a little bit more willing to listen. I had a 16-year-old 8th grader last year. His mother was telling him to quit school. Because you're old enough, I'll sign it, quit school. We had to work really hard to say, no, don't quit school. Because when you go to high school, you can take metal shop and blah, blah, blah. But in the end, he's at the high school this year. So I think we're a little bit, like you said, a little more connected, a little more community.
More hands-on.
Oh, absolutely. And also too, just to, this thing like I heard earlier was in a presentation, there's a lot of pressure to take all the advanced classes and have A's in those classes, where we don't have tech in our county. So we have in-house CTE classes. So we're funneling the kids to that, we're giving them the tuition and helping them set goals beyond secondary, post-secondary goals, and we're right there to help them get to their goals. We're not sending them off to another school or anything.
They're there, so you get to be on hand.
And it's good to be in a trade, like in our school.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. Yeah. Would you say anything deals with the job market? Because I'm thinking, we don't graduate from rural high school, there's no jobs for it, but, I'm thinking this is, since our booming economy, this might why it dropped down a little bit between 2019 and 20. I don't know, I always thought the economy may have something to do with it.
Well, absolutely right. I mean, if you drop out of high school in the middle of nowhere, what are you gonna do? As opposed to, well, if you live in Philadelphia, there are a trillion things you can do. And so that's often the hard sell where it's like, no, school's important though, but it's like, I've got a million opportunities here that, yeah, maybe I could advance over the course of 25 years further along, but right now, I can do something more advantageous than English class.
Well, thank you. I mean, I'm always curious why it's always been high, but we expected that. Okay, the next one is on other indicators. Rural areas, about a little bit more than 1 out of 5 adults have a bachelor's degree, while compared in urban areas, 36%. So there's a huge gap there. School incidents are a little bit lower in rural per thousand than in urban areas, and student activity expenditures are actually higher. And student activity expenditures include everything from sports to plays to clubs and so on and so forth. It's kind of a catch-all category for schools to plug that in there. So these are some other indicators when you think about your school and say, well, maybe things are bad because you have low expenditure. Not to say it's cause and effect, but it might be one contributing factor. Ditto school incidents involving the police, that might be something else. And you look at larger the communities with higher or lower education attainment might be a symptom of something else also. So these are factors you may want to consider. And PSSA scores are always everybody's whipping boy. Here we looked at the 3rd through 5th graders, and they're 1% who scored advanced in English and math. The 2022 that just came out last week. I didn't have time to crunch them out, but they pretty much look. I'm told they look pretty much the same that they did in 2021. But rural areas, as you can see, have been consistently lower in their PSSA scores compared to those in urban areas. But since the pandemic, both took a nosedive. And again, according to what I read, 2022 data, it pretty much shows the same trend of being lower than the pre-pandemic level. How to get them up? I don't know, good luck. The magic word is, no, it's gonna be a real struggle. And we just looked at the younger kids here because thinking that they're the ones who, most impacted, and it appears that might be the case. Okay, the next is neighborhood and the built environment. And I began by looking at a snapshot of housing, both in rural areas and urban areas. In rural areas, you generally have higher home ownership rate. Not a big surprise, mostly single family homes. But the price of the home in rural areas is significantly lower than in urban areas. For $183,000, you get an average home in rural areas, $252,000, like $53,000 in urban areas. So there's a big gap there. But the real indicator for housing is how much of the income you spend for your mortgage, for your insurance, for your utilities. In rural areas, about 23% spend more than 30% of their income for housing costs. In urban areas, about a quarter, 24%. And these are key indicators. HUD says, the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Affairs, say if you spend more than 30% of your income on housing, that's a bad thing. You spend less than 30%. And so we look at the same type of indicator for renters. And you find that renters, about 41%, spend more than 30% of their income for housing. And in urban areas, 48, almost half, spend their 30% or more of their income from housing. Now, you say, oh my goodness, this is horrible for renters. And it is, it's a really big problem. But this number also includes a lot of college students, or renters. So if you look at State College, you go, oh my cow, there's no affordable housing there. Well, they're students, they don't have income and all that good stuff. But the key takeaway from all this here is that, you know, when you look at your community and some of the issues it's facing, don't ignore the housing stock. It's a real driving factor in a lot of issues facing our communities. So are some other indicators, and here we look at vehicle accidents, full-time municipal employees per 1,000, local acres to parkland per 1,000, and SNAP retailers or food stamp retailers per 100,000. And you can see in most cases, you know, rural has sadly more alcohol-related crashes, and also, but they have more parkland. They have fewer municipal employees, and things like municipal employees are important. You need someone to plow the road, but more importantly, they provide the services. If there's a recreation program, have to be municipal employees, or in many cases, they are municipal employees. Don't have to be. In many cases, they are. So the key to take away from all this is there's a lot of data that's telling you what's going on in your community. Don't ignore it, and you can use it, and you can take a very good picture of what's going on locally. The fourth domain is economic stability. And here we look at the number of households that receive SNAP. To receive SNAP, of course, you have to be income qualified. And you can see the blue areas are areas that receive more than 20% or more of the households receive SNAP. And the or color that is, where they were less than 10% of that. So in rural areas, a lot of areas have higher SNAP enrollment. It's a great program for those who are in need, but you know it does also point to an indicator that many of our communities are not being able to find the resources to put enough food on the table, and they have to rely on assistance. And how to close that gap, I think, is an important conversation when you want to think about your community and how it's changing. Ditto the poverty rate. That's usually the go-to indicator, but it's not a great indicator. Urban areas have higher poverty rates. And then rural areas have a little bit lower poverty rate. But say in rural areas, these are the top 5 districts in rural, these are the top 5 districts in urban. In Shamokin area, or I'm sorry, Mountain City, which is up in Schuylkill County, it has the highest among rural, and then Farrow area, that's out in Mercer County, had the highest urban poverty rate. In fact, there's 2 of them. So yeah, poverty is a real issue in Pennsylvania, especially among students. So it is a useful indicator, but it somewhat, in some ways, masks the real need in the community, because poverty is a set definition. It doesn't change. You may want to look at kind of the need of the residents, and maybe look at the ratio of poverty to income. That's what kind of SNAP does. Some other indicators of social stability are household income, labor force participation, and commuting times. And surprisingly, rural and urban commuting times are the same. You may know why? Are they the same? There's kind of a reason why. Traffic, exactly. Yeah, to drive, 27 minutes in urban areas, you may not be going that far by rural areas, but still, it's pretty much the same. And that's been, both of us slowly increasing. In some years, rural is a bit higher, some years, urban is a little bit higher. It varies back and forth, but they're pretty consistent back that. But the real one here is labor force participation rate. Rural areas have fewer people in the workforce compared to urban areas. And that's going to be a big issue when you think about jobs and replacement and things like that. Okay, the fifth one and final one is social and community context. And here we're looking at people of color in terms of in 2020. White non-Hispanic would count for about 90%, and people of color count for 10%. And these are those Black or African American, a quarter, 24%, other races 10, which include Asian, 2 or more races, 31%, and Hispanic of any race, 34%. Urban areas, you see the same pattern, however, the percentages are much wider, though. So it's like, okay, that's nice. But what the real takeaway here is this map shows you how it's changed. This is the final map, this is all school district related. Each of these little dots represent 10 people. And here they are in 2020, number of people of color, or 2,000 people of color, and here they are in 2020. And you can see that we've got a lot more crowded here. So what about this area in the middle? Anybody have any idea what's going on there? Up by Clinton County, Cameron County, Potter County. There's no people up there.
I was gonna say.
Literally, I mean, there's any color, or any
The
color.
resources there.
So yeah, if you want to talk about deer, yeah, then how, in terms of like anybody period, going up there. There's a lot of state forest land up there. There's a lot of state, national forest land here in Wayne County. There's a lot of other land there that's vacant, not vacant, but private hands. So yeah, some of the fact, but the key takeaway from both of these maps is Pennsylvania is becoming quickly, very quickly, more diverse. And so that's gonna be how people say in Pennsylvania, do we like change? No, we hate it. Come on, it's horrible. So that's a big issue in the state, and how we react to that and how we manage that. I think it's gonna be an increasing question both at the school level as well as the community level. Because we know it doesn't go well, but how to make it go better, I think it's a real question. Other indicators include households without internet. In 2020, about 16% of rural households had no internet at all. And then the number of single persons, urban's actually a bit higher there. And these people are primarily widowers whose spouse passed away. So there's a lot more of that. Households without vehicle and voter participation. Again, these are indicators you may want to consider when putting together some data on your community. Think about what's going on. All right. Okay, so summary. Rural areas face a lot more challenges than urban areas. I think we hit that over the head pretty well. And they also have fewer resources to address school needs in urban areas. Total expenditures and teachers and things I didn't really get into here, it's going to have been decreasing over the years. I think it's going to get a little bit worse. And the medically underserved areas are more pronounced in rural areas. And the social determinants of health, like poverty, equal access to health care, education, are more pronounced in the rural area than urban areas. So the key takeaway is there's a lot of things that aren't so bad. But from a data perspective, there are 5 things you should keep in mind. In fact, the first is that these indicators can be used to analyze community needs, student needs and community needs. You can combine them together to do a job like that. Also, a lot of this data is available at the school district level. So don't say, I don't know how to do it, or there's no data. There is data. It's always important to remember that people make decisions, not data. So you collect this data and think, oh, this will tell us what to do. It won't. It'll just give you a roadmap which way to follow. Think of data as a compass, not as a decision maker. And next is doing data analysis is not rocket science. It doesn't require a lot of high skills, but what it really does require your importance and your attention is how to make it understandable. Because you can collect all this data and present it in a nice report. If it isn't read because it's thick and boring, no, you're in trouble. So yeah, but make sure it's understandable, whatever you do. And if you need help, or you need help finding data or helping analyze the data, ask. Now, I'm here at the Center for Rural Pennsylvania. We do a lot of community outreach. Give us a call. There's other cooperative extension. They have a lot they're primarily located in the county courthouse, but they can help you also in terms of doing data analysis, and they can call in some of their experts. If you're fortunate to be near Shippensburg or any other POSHI schools, a lot of classes are very eager to do survey research. Tap into them. There's a lot of information, a lot of groups willing to help you out there. The one section that's parallel here is on United Way. They're always very eager to collect data for places. So if you need help, ask. This is available. Okay, to conclude, we had a hearing back in October on mental health issues, and it's very fascinating. What we found was that first, the PACE data, which is the Pennsylvania Youth Survey, everybody's heard of that data, right? Well, I didn't show you here because I don't have the school district, I only have the county level that's publicly available. But anyways, that basically showed a very negative decline in a lot of indicators. Suicide idealization, depression, and all these other indicators was going on there. So that's a big thing there. It also showed a decline in professionals who are able to treat children in needs. So that was a big, and recruiting people who are able to do that has been a real struggle for many school districts. One positive bright light was from the superintendent. in Brookville School District in Jefferson County. He said there's been an increased willingness among students to talk about their mental health needs and make it more open. They're less stigmatized, according to him, which is a very good sign. And there are big issues about the reimbursement rates for healthcare providers. So they provide telehealth. Some of them are not getting reimbursed for that. So these are some of the highlights on it. If you'd like a summary, it's on our website. Feel free to take a look at that. You can actually watch the hearing. It wasn't 5 hours, it's only 1 hour. So if you're interested, yeah. So that's my presentation. I do have some trivia. You want some trivia questions?
Sure.
Why not, huh? Okay, thank you, yeah. Okay, in Pennsylvania, we have 67 counties. How many have more cows than people?
I guess 30.
30? 10? More, come on, 67, pick a number. 50? Yeah, one. Fulton County, where McCallsburg is, down here, actually have 19,000 cows, or almost 20,000 cows, and a little bit less than 15,000 people. So, you know. Another one? Sure, why not? Okay, today's the December 7th. At 7:09, the sun rose in Philip. Oh, everyone just gave it away. Darn it. No. Anyway, it took the sun 20 minutes to get from one end of the state to the other this morning. So, and that was 257 miles, more or less. So yeah, Pennsylvania, you know, it's a big state. It takes the sun 20 minutes to get from, well, 21 minutes today. It's going to go down as the as we get closer to the summer equinox or summer solstice, but here being close to the winter solstice gets longer. But yeah. Another one? Okay, in rural Pennsylvania, are there more pickup trucks or passenger cars?
This feels like a trick.
Uh-huh.
I like this.
Or passenger.
Passenger?
I'm gonna say
Does it-
pickup
does an
truck.
SUV count as a pickup?
SUV is an SUV, and it does not have a truck license plate. So what do you think? Passenger? Yeah, you're right. 2 million versus 600, or less than 700,000. So yeah, that's a big gap. I think I have
My high
one.
school parking lot would say otherwise.
Where are you from?
Huh?
Well, where are you from?
Central Pennsylvania.
Right, next one. Okay. Oh, yeah. In Pennsylvania, how many places end in bird? Like Pittsburgh, it has an H at the end. Harrisburg, this has a G at the end. And Heidelberg, which just has an E in it. Are there 53 municipalities, 82, or 126? Pennsylvania's a land of birds.
I'm going C.
Okay, wait a minute. C, bring back
I'm
to
going
C.
C.
C, okay. B, A. No takers? B. Right, okay, I think I have one more. Oh, yeah. Along PennDOT highways, not municipal highways, but PennDOT-owned highways, are there more traffic signs or more billboards or traffic signal, red lights? Because remember, you drove up here, you see all the billboards? Yeah, lots of them. Oh, I got to put some red lights too. What do you think? Red lights? Billboards? Yeah, you got it.
They make money.
So that's that. Yeah, one more final one. It's actually in our newsletter. In rural Pennsylvania, are there more doctors or lawyers? And you'd be right. Yeah, because remember, to be a lawyer, what do you need? Briefcase or computer, laptop. And you can go to the courthouse. To be a doctor, what do you need? You need a waiting room. You need old magazines. You need a stethoscope. You need stuff like that.
Wait, so that still means there are more of them?
There's more doctors than lawyers
Oh, okay.
in that county, in the rural counties. So, okay, with that in mind, this is kind of like that's formal presentation. So, are you doing any type of data collection in your communities? What time is it?
It's about 1:55. We have about 5 minutes.
5 minutes, yeah. So, any questions or anything? Or anybody doing any type of data collection?
Well, I work at a middle school, and one of the big things we look at is discipline numbers. And we look at the number of incidents and then the number of students. that are involved because it's been a big issue and it's been increasing the last several years. So they do a lot of like data comparisons, and we're trying to kind of figure out like what's going on to help reduce those numbers.
Do you look outside outside
Right
the
now, we're
school?
just looking at our school.
Okay. That's a good one. I mean, are you doing data analysis, sorry, statistical analysis of it, or
Anyway,
statistical analysis, or just kind of like relationships?
probably a little bit more of like the relationships. We are looking at like prior years, but we kind of eliminated the
COVID
COVID
years,
years
yeah.
because
Pretty
it's not
close.
like accurate data.
Yeah, that was great. Yeah, I mean, that's a good question, why did it increase, why it spiked now? But again, you might want to look at some other school-related data, like expenditure data for, as I pointed out, student activities, that might be something that might be related to. And so you may, again, talk to your local university or some extension, ask them to do some analysis for you in those indicators. There might be something that's overlooked in the data, not cause and effect, you'll never find that. Something that's more related that might be more manageable for that. Anything else, Dwayne?
As a question, maybe different, if you focus on rural work, is there a similar agency that does this for urban studies as well?
No, the short answer is no.
Okay. Cool, so you get to set the narrative then.
Pretty much. No, it's a Philadelphia lobby doesn't really need their own center. But no, it's no. When they created us, the legislature, rural members were very concerned about rural communities, and at that time urban areas were doing pretty well, as they are today, by and large. I mean, they definitely have problems. I won't sugarcoat that, but by and large they're doing much better in terms of a lot of these indicators. So how to manage that, the legislature wasn't so much concerned about as they were in the more rural areas. Yeah. Any projects, any research that you're interested in that we might be able to help you with? Let us know. Well, thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.